The 2030 Agenda and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals aim to reduce poverty and achieve sustainable development while leaving no one behind. The scope and urgency of the agenda have prompted extensive reforms to the UN development system to position itself better to support progress on the SDGs. In countries across the world, a new generation of UN country strategies, known as the Sustainable Development Cooperation Frameworks, or SDCFs, are currently rolled out. Tanzania will get its first SDCF in July 2022. The SDCF is the primary instrument for planning the UN's work at country level and to accelerate progress on the SDGs. Jointly developed with government, the cooperation framework sets out agreed sustainable development objectives for the UN work in the country. These objectives are derived from SDG targets and are tailored to the specific country context. The country context is in turn analyzed through the Common Country Analysis, or CCA. The CCA is the UN's independent and impartial analysis of the country's progress and prospects on the SDGs. The CCA examines challenges and identifies opportunities to deliver solutions to accelerate progress across multiple goals, given their integrated nature. Leaving no one behind is at the center of the transformative promise of the 2030 Agenda. Therefore, the CCA places specific attention on the most vulnerable populations and examines multidimensional factors that advance the potential of individuals and societies as a whole. The CCA document is currently under formulation by the UN Tanzania. It has 4 parts. Part 1 provides an assessment of SDG status. It encompasses chapters on economic growth and employment, poverty and demographic dimensions, social development, and environmental sustainability. Part 2 examines the enabling environment for SDG acceleration. Part 3 looks at multidimensional risks, and Part 4 will identify opportunities for advancing SDGs, including solutions that can accelerate progress across multiple goals. The CCA looks at the 3 dimensions of sustainable development collectively and individually, and in order to provide a framework for analyzing development prospects and challenges. In this slide, you can see Tanzania's progress on the SDGs in the 3 dimensions. As you can see, there is moderate progress across a range of SDGs in all 3 dimensions. However, you will also note that progress on many goals is slowing and that progress in the social dimension is lagging behind. This tells you that for Tanzania to achieve the SDGs by 2030, a lot needs to be done regarding the pace of development. On its current path and pace, the country will not be able to successfully attain all SDGs. The task of the CCA, in addition to appraising performance on Agenda 2030 and examining the enabling environment for further progress, is to identify potential opportunities for accelerating SDG achievement. An accelerator in this sense is a specific achievement in one area that unlocks significant development gains across a wide range of sectors and dimensions. In Tanzania, given the key overall findings of the CCA so far, important accelerators would be those that have a positive impact on some of the cross-cutting challenges of the country's development challenges. This means achievements that help balance progress across the 3 dimensions that can address and alleviate the causes and consequences of rapid population growth, that can remove barriers to inclusion and participation, halt land degradation, and seriously improve bureaucratic inefficiencies. An accelerator, however, needs to be specific and realistically achievable within the time frame of the cooperation framework. So while you could say that achieving total gender equality would possibly be the single most important factor to accelerate progress on all development dimensions, it is a generational task rather than an achievement that can be expected in a 5-year plan. On the other hand, a specific intervention that in itself allows the gender parity agenda to leapfrog would indeed be an accelerator. For Agenda 2030, we're primarily looking for potential accelerators among the 169 SDG targets. Is there an SDG target that the government, UN, and partners could achieve together that would allow for a considerable acceleration on Agenda 2030? Here follows two potential such accelerators to provide you with examples of what we're looking for. Please consider them as examples and not suggestions at this stage. The first one relates to the acceleration effect that could be achieved if a higher proportion of girls completed secondary school, and the second looks at the potential effects of a considerable increase in agricultural productivity. First of all, it is well known from research that secondary school education has considerable impact on sustainable development. Primary schooling is of course also important, not least to get you to secondary school, but does not in itself generate significant development advances across society. Furthermore, research is also clear that when the social economic status of women rises, as it does with secondary school education completion, the developmental consequences accelerate even further. The World Bank has looked in detail into the requirements and development impact of girls' secondary education, and the results are astonishing. This example is based on some of the evidence and research that the World Bank has produced. In the top row, you can see some of the areas of intervention in SDG language that are needed to achieve the SDG target of secondary school completion. This demonstrates quite clearly that such an achievement would not be the result of working purely in the education sector. Rather, it depends on interventions across a range of sectors, including infrastructure, WASH, gender equality, sexual and reproductive rights, governance and livelihoods, in addition to education. It also requires partnerships, policies, institutional and coordination capacities, and of course, financing. If achieved, the bottom row shows that SDGs would be directly impacted. This is all evidence-based, and you can see the impact across the social dimensions. Children whose mothers have completed secondary school are more likely to themselves complete school. They eat better, and their health is stronger. Women with secondary schooling have better sexual and reproductive health and are less likely to give birth in childhood. In addition, there are considerable impact in the economic dimensions because women with education earn more money and are more productive. They also engage more in politics and in the economy, thus improving the enabling environment for SDG achievement. In summary, the example of girls' secondary education shows us that a specific achievement in the social dimension can generate acceleration in other dimensions, such as the economic. It also shows that to achieve an SDG target, traditional sector silos must be broken. The UN, if it were to work for this SDG target, could not treat it as an education issue. Rather, it would have to mobilize its comparative advantages, expertise, and resources from WASH, nutrition, gender livelihoods and governance, as well as education to be able to be successful. And it would, of course, depend on broad partnerships and government, development partners, civil society, and the private sector. The second accelerator example concerns agricultural productivity. In fact, crop yield per hectare is an SDG target and one where Tanzania is not doing well. And again, as shown in the slide, doubling agricultural productivity cannot be done by treating the matter as purely one of agricultural techniques or inputs. While girls' education is a multisectoral and multidimensional target that will require concerted efforts across a range of sectors, examples of these and their SDG links are shown in the top row. This SDG target, if achieved, would be considerable and direct impact across all three dimensions of Agenda 2030. Higher agricultural input would of course be beneficial for the farmer and for the economy at large. It would increase Tanzanian competitiveness and boost the economy while the farmers' incomes would rise. This in itself could have positive examples on, for example, health and education, as if rural households get more income to spend on social services. But it would also improve food security and lead to progress on nutrition, as stunting and wasting in children is a major social challenge. This brings us to the consultations. We're seeking the assistance of all our partners and stakeholders to help turn our preliminary findings into evidence-based opportunities for accelerating SDG achievement. We see that on its current trajectory, Tanzania is not on track to achieve Agenda 2030 in its entirety, but we also see that there are long range of positive trends to further build on. With your help, we may identify some key development challenges that, if resolved, may unlock broader development gains. Once we have identified these, we'll again come back to you and discuss how we can put our collective resources and comparative advantages to use so that we may achieve them.